So welcome to our webinar, and thank you to everybody for joining us. Today's webinar will be trade show fundamentals, so really kind of more of a 101 type of content. So if you're just getting started in the trade show industry, this is going to be a great one for you. And let's go ahead and get started. Sorry about that, we had some technical difficulties. But to get started, I really wanted to give everybody just a little bit of background about myself and Jack. So I have been at E3 for coming up on 6 years now, and during that time frame, trade shows have really just evolved into my passion. It is really fun and exciting for me to be able to talk with our partners about their trade show needs, their functional requirements, and their goals. We also get a better understanding of their brands and what they actually do as a company, and really just getting to learn about different industries is a really fun process. And then we also get to see those exhibits literally come to life here in our facility, and it's a really cool experience. And I will let Jack give his introduction.
So hi, I'm Jack, and I've been with E3 for about 5 months now, and it's been a blast since I've started. So I've really helped kind of expand our network here and help clients kind of throughout their journey of their trade show program.
And if you have any questions specifically for us about that, please feel free to drop those in the chat box. Like I mentioned before we really started, we will be asking some questions throughout this webinar, so please be prepared to drop some answers in the chat box for us. Yeah, there we go. Talking, like I said, trade show fundamentals, more of a 101 type of content. We are going to start with what is a trade show? Why do they matter? Then we're going to get into the different types of spaces, the different types of solutions, overall ins and outs of a trade show, some of the rules and regulations, essentials, best practices, and some more. We're also going to talk about when to rent, when to purchase, some high-level 101 on budgeting and timelines, and then we have a great offer for everybody that joined our webinar today, and then we'll wrap up with some Q&A at the very end. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so what is a trade show? So just by definition, it is an industry-specific event where companies can come and showcase their different products and services. So there are really three main types, which are regional, national, and international. And so why do trade shows matter? Face-to-face interactions with potential new clients are extremely important, especially coming out of COVID, now more than ever. And so you also have a chance to get direct competitor analysis, which can kind of help you really see where your brand sits with, tying to your brand visibility and awareness as well. And then lead generation. Lead generation is an extremely important part of trade shows and why they matter. You're there to get in front of people, build relationships, and kind of continue networking. So it's really also helpful for industry education. You can identify different trends and see where your guys' businesses are going. And so why exhibit? Product launches and rebrand launches are, of course, great in a trade show setting. You have a chance to get in front of a bunch of people that can now see your new products or brands. So brand visibility, of course, ties into that. And then obviously, like I mentioned before, you can add leads, which are extremely important while you're there and really maximize your ROI from those. Educational opportunities are, of course, great. When it comes to trade shows, the more people you can get in front of and really showcase your brand is just outstanding. And, kind of like I said earlier, industry insights, whether those are trends, emerging solutions, or just industry knowledge as a whole. And you'll also get really direct access to your target audience, which is outstanding, and your competitors as well, kind of see where you stack up amongst your competition. And then, of course, networking, getting in front of people is outstanding. So please drop your answers in the chat, but why does your company really exhibit at trade shows?
Well, I can tell you some of our partners are exhibiting at trade shows to, again, launch their new brand. We've worked with many different clients that have really came to us for that specific brand launch. Brand launching is very important because when you're doing something new with your brand, you want to make sure that you're reinforcing who you are, what you do, and you're still that same company with the same values, but we're wearing a new face. Depending on that new brand, it really can vary, but that is one really key element in doing a new brand, especially when you're at a new trade show.
All right, so why attend trade shows? And the numbers really tell the story. So we found that 92% of trade show attendees really visit specifically to see new products. And so this has actually been the top reason over the last 25 years or so. And then 88% really participate to raise awareness of their company and their brand. Then also 46% of event managers have noted that lead generation is their primary reason for participating in the trade shows.
All right, now that we know what a trade show is, why people are attending, let's get into more of the cool stuff. So let's talk about the different exhibit space types. And this can be really critical because the last thing you want to have to do is a last minute pivot. And the best way to make sure you don't have to last minute pivot is understanding what you can and cannot do. So for the exhibit spaces, we have inlines that are also called linear spaces. We have end caps or peninsulas. We also have parameter booths, corner booths, islands, and split islands. So let's talk about each one on a more individual level. Okay, so first we have inlines. Often they are also called linear spaces, so they're 10 foot deep and can range from 10 foot wide, 20 foot wide, so on and so forth, but they do expand in that linear format. So what can you do in an inline space? So like you're seeing in this illustration, you can obviously have a back wall. That back wall must be under or at 8 foot high. From the back wall, you can extend 5 foot at that 8 foot high requirement, but then when you get to the front 5 foot of the space, it must be under 4 foot high. The reason being is the show wants to make sure that there is no line of sight issues from exhibitor to exhibitor. So think about when you're at the end of an inline, a row of exhibits, you want to be able to see every single exhibitor within that line. So that is where that 4 foot height requirement comes into play, just making sure that everybody can see all the rest of the exhibitors that are in that inline aisle. Pro tip, if your exhibit space is larger than a 10 by 30 type of footprint, you should explore or at least consider exploring more of an island solution. You're going to have much more flexibility on what you can do, and it's going to create a much better experience for the flow of the exhibit because you have open aisles, and we'll talk more about an island here in a little bit. But that is one recommendation, is to explore an island versus a 10 by 30 or very long type of footprint. So then we have corner booths. These are going to be very comparable to an inline space. My biggest recommendation here is to talk with the show about what they will or will not allow for a corner booth space. Reason being is it kind of varies show to show. So the best way you can identify exactly what you can and can't do is by talking with the show. In general, it's going to be comparable to an inline space where we'll have a back wall at 8 foot high, and that can range from 10 foot wide, 20 foot wide, so on and so forth. And then on the side walls, We can also extend from 5 foot to the back of the wall at 8 foot high. But again, to make sure that there are no line of sight issues, we are going to have to stay at that 4 foot height requirement on the front 5 foot of the space. This illustration is showing 3 foot and 3 foot. Again, depending on the show, sometimes we have 10 by 10, which means 10 foot long, 10 foot deep. Or we could also have 10 foot long and 6 foot deep. Depending on the show and the industry, it kind of varies show to show. Pro tip on this one, a way to help eliminate exhibitors from crossing your booth space in the corner and kind of cutting the aisle, put a half height wall that's 4 foot high or a counter on the corner, and that's going to eliminate people kind of cutting that corner and entering your space to make sure you're maximizing all areas. So then we have parameter booths, and this is, again, very comparable to an inline space, to somebody that's just joining the industry, kind of like Jack here. The parameter might look exactly like an inline, but they are different. So when you're in a parameter space, you're going to be against the facilities, either the walls within the facility, the walls of the convention center, so there's not as many line of sight restrictions. So in this instance, you can go up to 10 foot high. Some shows will also allow 12 foot high. Again, check with your show and the rules and regulations to make sure that you're following the specific height requirements. Same with the inline spaces. At the front 5 foot of the space, we're going to have to stay under 4 foot high to make sure there's no line of sight issues between the side exhibitors. But since the back wall is going to be a big wall from the convention center, you have much more flexibility on the height itself. So for this example that you're seeing on the right here, this is a really good illustration of a modular solution, which is our pro tip. So they have a main 20-foot back wall that is at that 8-foot height requirement, and then we took a custom solution that goes up to 12 foot high to give them that really nice height in the space. But then when they go to another show and have a standard type of inline, they can remove that custom element, and now their booth still follows the guidelines that they're going to have to follow through the show. We also have end caps or peninsulas. They are a little bit different. An end cap is going to be a 10 by 20 space, so 10 foot deep and 20 foot wide. A peninsula is going to be more of a 20 by 20 space, so 20 foot deep and 20 foot wide. But they're very comparable as far as what you can and cannot do. In this illustration, you can see that the outer 5 foot of the space has to be under that 4 foot height requirement. Again, like we keep talking, that is specifically for the line of sight. So if you're at the very end of the row of inline exhibits, we want to still be able to see all the other inline exhibitors behind you. In the center of the space, you can go 10 foot wide, 8 foot high. Some shows are also going to allow you to eclipse that 8 foot height requirement, maybe go up to 10 foot high. Again, really recommend checking your rules and regulations for what the show will allow in this type of space. Pro tip here, again, look at those rules and regulations for the space. I've had a couple of conversations with partners that we really focus on a 10 by 20 exhibit, talk about what we want to achieve, and then we double check the floor plan, and it turns out they're actually in an end cap space. If I wouldn't have taken that extra step to double check the floor plan, there would have been a lot of on-site pivoting and last-minute challenges to modify the exhibit to make sure it follows what the show is going to allow. So my personal favorite and the fun items, in my personal opinion, an island space. Why are they more fun? Why are they my favorite? You can do a lot more in an island space than what you can in the others. You have 4 aisle sides, which means that we also have to take more into account. You have exhibitors that are, attendees that are entering the space from all 4 sides. So really focusing on what you want that flow of the exhibit is critical to make sure you're creating the right type of experience. In an island, you can also go up to 16 foot high. Some shows will even allow you to go higher. You can also rig an overhead sign in the space. So I don't know about you guys, but when I'm at a trade show, I get really easily lost. Get turned around, and the best way to figure out where the person or the exhibitor is that you want to go see is by looking at those overhead signs. So I really do recommend incorporating an overhead sign into your island space, just because trade shows can be very challenging to navigate. Pro tip here, really make sure that your partner fully understands what your needs are, what your goals are, and even what your budget is, to help you develop the solution that truly matches your needs and your goals. Keep the open line of communication, and they're going to steer you in the right direction, and make sure that we're creating a purposeful experience, and that your attendees are truly involved in that buyer's journey throughout the space. Okay, so one other type of space is a split island. So this is going to be very comparable to a standard island space. You can go up to 16 foot high. You can have overhead signs. Caveat on the overhead signs is they have to be a minimum of 10 foot from your neighboring connected exhibitor. That being because the show doesn't want to have your branding in somebody else's exhibit. So we have to kind of pull that to the front, which is a great example here with Domino. We had to have that more on the corner to make sure that their brand wasn't in the other exhibitor's space. Some shows, specifically PAC Expo, have a lot of unique rules and regulations, and this is a split island, but it's also a split island with a corner. So we have two 16-foot high back walls on either side to separate the exhibitors. When you have those big walls, you must have the backside finished, so that way there's no exposed or ugly hardware in somebody else's space, whether that be just a simple backside white or black graphic. It does have to be finished. However, it cannot be branded, again, to make sure that your brand isn't in somebody else's space. Pro tip, create some visual distinction throughout the design elements to pull attention directly to your space. So in this Domino exhibit, we have a really big, impactful wood beam archway that draws your attention directly to the center of the space. And even though it's not a true island with all four sides, it really helps draw people directly to the space, and specifically the center, just because of that really big element. Okay, so
before you ask this one, Kayla, we do have some answers from the last question about why people exhibit. Marcia said that they do it to connect with their customers. Greta said it's to build connections with customer base and keep our brand positively represented. And Renee said that they use them to get their name out to new markets and to stay relevant in traditional markets.
Yeah, those are all great reasons to attend a show. When you're at a trade show, you really capture both your competitors, your potential partners and clients, and getting your brand and just your name out there is always a great way to fill that pipeline and keep your sales team with new opportunities. Sorry we missed the first one. It's the first time we're doing some chats here, so I appreciate you guys sticking with us. But I do have another question for you. What type of exhibit space do you guys think is the most common? Again, please drop your answers in the chat box. This time we'll have a feedback right away.
Inline linear is one guess. A second guess for inline. That's all we've got so far.
All right, well, I'll give you the answer. You are correct. It is an inline or a linear space. Reason being that they are a little bit more simple to create the experience. You don't have to take in all four aisle sides, and you can still create a really nice and impactful space in an inline solution. you just are a little bit more refined to the type of solutions you can incorporate.
All right, so let's talk about the different types of exhibit hardware, so everything that goes into what Kayla just talked about. So we have the portables, hybrid, and structural exhibits, or hardware. And so the first is portable. These are extremely easy to set up. No tools are required. They're lightweight and compact down to a much smaller size, and so they're really perfect for kind of just your pop-up exhibits that are can be very impactful. So the pro tip we have with these are if you're exploring portable solutions, you should try and find them that utilize the SEG or the Silicon Edge graphics, which give a much higher end look. And so the next type of exhibit hardware we have are the hybrid exhibits. So these are still DIY, but do require some tools for assembly, typically a T-tool, and they are still a much higher end finish, and they are much more functional with accessories. So as you can see in the photo there, you have the shelving, and we can also attach monitors to them as well. So the pro tip, if you are looking for the kind of higher end look with the more functionality of a portable, you should consider mixing a hybrid with a portable, so these solutions can really elevate the look while maintaining the easy assembly. And so next we have these structural. These are a ton of fun. They're super modular. You can almost think of them as Legos. You can piece them together into however space you want or whatever size space you need. So say you have a show that's a 20 by 20, we can definitely build something out of this hardware that can fit that really well. But also if you have another show in a month later or so that's a 10 by 10, we can also use that same hardware, throw another graphic on it, and it'll fit that space really well.
Yeah, that's one thing I really, really like about our island solutions is, like Jack said, think of them like Legos. You can build them up to their biggest magnitude, or you can take parts and pieces to create a specific experience. They're much more robust. They can hold a lot of weight. They can have a lot of customization, and really can create any type of experience with a little limitation that you're looking for. So again, just talk with your partner about what you're wanting to create, and this could be a really great option for your program.
And so again, just to compare them all out, so the portables are lightweight, compact, and very easy to set up. Hybrids do give you the more high-end finish. They are a little heavier, and a T-tool is required. And then the structural, just like we kind of mentioned before, they are completely custom modular, very functional, but do require some professional assembly. So please drop your answers in the chat. What type of exhibit hardware does your program consist of?
We should have incorporated some background sound music while we waited.
One answer, we've had all types, modular currently.
Yeah, the modular solutions are really great because you can use them a lot of times in your island solutions. You can break them down and then use them in inlines. And as long as you're working with the right partner, they can direct you into how those components can best be used. I also have a lot of clients that really like their portable solutions because they're quick, they're easy. They can still create that higher end type of look, but again, they are a little bit easier.
All right, so portable solutions are the most common type of trade show hardware, and you might be wondering, well, why is that? It's because they're super easy. Generally, these are the most common due to their easy transport and assembly.
Okay, so let's get into a little bit of the more specifics and kind of where there's some gray areas for trade shows. So the rules and regulations, specifically ADA requirements. I'm not going to review every single bullet point here. Definitely recommend going to your exhibitor kit and reading through some of these because they are crucial But in general, making sure that your space is open, it has wide enough aisles for people to be able to navigate through. In general, you don't want to have a cluttered space anyways, because then it's going to make people feel a little hesitant to enter your space. So to also make sure it's compliant, make sure you have some wider spaces, barrier-free areas, and making sure that all of your content is within a reachable distance. Then we have fire safety regulations. Of course, the convention center doesn't want your exhibit to catch on fire. So this really comes into play when you have a two-story structure or some sort of ceiling element. Some shows will require that you have fire sprinklers incorporated into a two-story structure to make sure that if it does catch fire for whatever reason, it's going to be able to be put out. Other times they're just going to require a fire extinguisher within that space if it's a little bit of a smaller footprint. Thankfully, most manufacturers already incorporate flammable retardants into their solutions. And if you're not sure, I would definitely recommend looking up those manufacturing guidelines to make sure that those are incorporated. When you start to go into the more international experience, it does change from U.S. shows to international shows, so just make sure that you are aware of what those fire regulations are. Okay, structural integrity. I'm going to keep this one kind of more like KISS, so keep it simple, stupid. We don't want your exhibit to fall on people. We don't want that as a actual exhibit partner, and then you, of course, don't want that as the exhibitor. There could be some specific legal issues if it does fall on somebody. So the show is going to require that it's structurally sound, making sure that the hardware is incorporating the right type of load-bearing solutions. They're going to sometimes, depending on the overall experience, require engineered stamped drawings. But again, my biggest recommendation on this, if you're ever wondering if you're within that structural integrity, double check the rules and regulations or talk with your partner about what that is to make sure that you are compliant. Noise. This one is kind of another gray area that people aren't really aware of. There are actual volume limits at a trade show, which is kind of crazy because the convention center in general, it tends to be loud. So that's why it's kind of a gray area. But if you do have a lot of large speaker elements and doing some live demonstrations, just making sure that you are being cognizant of your neighbors, not having something that's too overpowering and that resulting in a complaint because of the noise. Okay, so drop your answers in the chat. I would love to hear what types of rules and regulations are unique to your industry. For instance, one of my clients, they are in the vehicle industry, and when they take any sort of vehicle to a show that is inside, they have to empty the tank fully of gas or at least empty it to a quarter of a tank. Any other unique rules and regulations? Some of the other ones I can think of, specifically on like food safety, or not food safety shows, but food shows in general, is you have to have the food individually packaged and labeled based off of the location's requirements, so that way people know what they are ingesting.
Yeah, definitely food information, food industry, and then also there are requirements for labeling with allergy information on samples.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You might not have any unique specific ones, but if you do and you have questions on it, let us know. We'd love to help. Okay, so breaking the rules, what you need to know. Again, keep it simple. Don't break the rules. Why? You can be fined. You can have fees for breaking those rules, especially if somebody does complain. A lot of shows have a point system where the higher your points are, the better your space is. So if you're building that point system and you get a complaint because you're not following the rules and regulations, you could lose that space that you worked really hard to get to, and now you're in the back of the show instead of at the forefront. You could even be literally banned from the show, depending on how severe you broke that rule. So I'm sure that you would not want to chance not being able to attend an industry show. So again, don't break the rules. Legal actions can be made. You can be sued. So just really know what those rules and regulations are. And the last, it can impact your reputation. If your exhibit falls on somebody and then you get sued, it's probably going to be commonly known just because it is an industry-wide show. And the last thing you want to do when you're at a trade show and brands and images, everything, is have something go tremendously wrong. My pro tip here was don't break the rules. I said it many of times, but that is my biggest recommendation.
All right, so now we're going to get into the terminology of trade shows. And so the EAC, that's the exhibitor acquired contractor, and so that's us. So that's when we get to come in and help build your booth and provide all those other show services as well. Then there's the drayage and material handling. So this is when you ship your booth to the show. This is when they take it from their warehouse to your booth space. And then COI, that's certificate of insurance, making sure that not only you guys are covered because the show doesn't want to be liable, but if we were to come and help, we would also need one as well. And then there's the show decorator, so that's like Freeman or GES. They help put on the show. And then the GSC, that's your general service contractor. So that's the show labor that the service can then provide as well if you weren't going to use us. And then the advanced warehouse, that's when you can ship it to the warehouse, to the show in advance, and they would store it at your warehouse or at their warehouse. And then the direct-to-show shipping is when you just ship it direct to your show.
I was just going to clarify on that first one, in case you guys didn't pick it up. It was exhibitor appointed contractor.
Yeah, so that's essentially what that does is give our team access to the show floor before the actual show starts, so that way we can get in and install your exhibit. It also gives us the authorization to help you schedule any of those show services on your behalf.
All right, so here's some of the common services that are ordered. There are three we find to be really essential. So that's the electricity or electric labor, the material handling, of course, and then flooring if you don't already own it. And then a few optional ones are the install and dismantle, the cleaning and porter, and then rigging. So if you were to have a hanging sign like Kayla mentioned earlier, you would need rigging.
There's lots of other show services that can be ordered. Some people would like to order them, but they're definitely not required. The rest of this list here are more of optional items, but we wanted to highlight the key elements.
So pro tip we have here is you can save up to 30% by meeting some of the early bird deadlines. So the best practices when it comes to material handling, you want to really consolidate everything that you're shipping to the show. So you want to make sure it can all fit together so that way they aren't having to carry us multiple boxes or items like that. So you can see in the graphic that we have in the right, if you're able to really consolidate everything, they'll only have to carry it once and only move it once, so it'll be much cheaper compared to if you had a bunch of individual boxes, or that's going to require just more labor. And so, it really helps cut costs and save everything. They're much less likely to be lost and less likely to be damaged as well. We also really advise that you mark all your crates extremely well. You really don't want to have anything get lost potentially that can set you back when it comes to installing your booth. Then you always want to estimate low on your material handling forms. So that way, when you're filling that out, if you say something might cost $500, but in reality only costs $350, then they will still charge you the $500 because that's what you assumed it would cost. Then another thing we like to make sure people do is shrink wrap your pallet so that way people can't really steal or, see what you have.
One other reason we like to tell our clients to really mark your crates well is trade shows are chaos. So anything can really happen on the trade show floor. Every now and then, the contractors can accidentally take your booth assets to a neighboring or somebody maybe a couple aisles down. If they are marked really well, it's going to be much easier for you to look around and spot your assets. Then you can get them to your booth rather than getting scared that they're not in the right place, because trade shows are trade shows and chaos can happen. So marking them well can just make sure that they get to the right place. And if they are not in the right place, you can at least go back and find them.
So another pro tip we have is pictures, pictures, and more pictures. So make sure that everything that you have is documented and you have proof that it is not only there, but everything has these shipping labels, pallets, cases. You really don't want anything to get lost because yes, trade shows can be hectic. So there are a few common types of labor. So there's the straight time, which this usually falls just Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. There's also overtime, so Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. until midnight, or Monday through Friday, midnight to 8 a.m. and then Saturday all day. There's double time, which is all day Sunday and holidays, and then we also have the minimum labor call, which is just the minimum amount of hours that you would be charged for each laborer, even if the work is completed in less time. So make sure you review with the exhibitor manual to really understand the setup and dismantle times, as these can greatly impact your budget.
Yeah, and one element I wanted to point out in this slide is a couple of differences between working with our team versus the show's team. The show is going to charge you by the person and by the hour, and they don't take all aspects of the build into account. When you work with E3 on your install and dismantle services, we are going to take specifically the time frame into account, making sure that we are accommodating for the appropriate labor types. And then we're able to provide our partners with a fixed cost on that service. That really helps our clients budget properly. It eliminates any surprises after the service. And the last thing we want to do is surprise our clients with an extra bill. So we really focus in and make sure that we are taking all aspects of the build into account, providing our clients with that fixed rate versus a per person and per hour rate. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the timelines. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking with our director of production, and she said, Kayla, can you please talk about timelines in one of your webinars? So I really wanted to kind of keep this high level today, but it is very important to understand what type of timeline you need to be on. One element here, we are missing a month, and I'll explain why in a little bit, but in general, from the very point that you are starting conversations with your partner should be about 7 months in advance to the start of your show. The more time you can allow your partner with the design, the production, and then in our instance, the staging before we go to the show, the better the process is going to be when you get on site to the show. It minimizes risks. It makes sure that we can mount items properly. You can come in, test out your content, make sure it's all working properly before you even get to the show. So the more time you give us or whomever your partner may be, the better the final result is going to be. The reason that April is missing is from the point that you approve the proposal, there's going to be about a month time frame between when you actually have to finally submit that artwork. So that's why it's not illustrated here. But typically, most partners are going to take about a month to create their artwork. But in general, we're looking about a 7-month time frame from start of conversation to the actual show date. Now, keep in mind that can be streamlined if needed. If you find out last minute that you're getting a new exhibit or something along those lines, we can streamline that, but this would be ideal to make sure that that experience is absolutely perfect and you experience no hiccups when you get to the show.
Is that on all exhibit sizes?
Great question. This would be more geared towards an island solution. If we're looking at more of a portable solution or maybe an inline type of solution, that can also be much more streamlined. For those, I would say 3 to 4 months would be a great time frame. Again, we can streamline that 3 to 4 month time frame, but that time frame is just going to allow for minimizing of any unknowns, making sure it's going to be perfect for you when you do get to the show. Okay, so why is this important? Why did my director of production ask me to talk about this? Trade show dates don't move. It doesn't matter if we're behind, if you as the client is behind, or for whatever reason, anybody is behind. That show date is not going to move. So rather than getting additional time, we have to figure out ways to make up that time. And a lot of other industries, like the construction industry, say their partners are behind and it's going to take their electricians more time than they originally thought. They just kick back that launch date. That doesn't happen in our industry. So really knowing what timelines you need to be on can be very critical, especially when you're in that island type of footprint. Okay, so I also wanted to talk about rental versus purchase. We get a lot of questions from clients that are asking which route should we go. So I thought it would be good to talk about that today. There are benefits and disadvantages of both routes. So some of the purchase benefits, you can have full customization. We can make curved elements, we can do 3D logos, and you can do some of that in a rental solution, but you're much more restricted to something more streamlined. A purchase is typically more of a long-term type of investment, but it also results in long-term cost savings. It creates brand consistency show to show. So that way, when you're going to different shows, the attendees know exactly what to look for as far as an image or something along those lines to be able to identify you. And the more consistent you can be, the better the result is going to be. And then at the end of the day, you do own it. It's your asset and you would get full control of it. Some of the rental benefits are you have full flexibility. If you wanted to literally change the experience every single show, you would have that option because you don't own it. You don't have to worry about any storage for the asset since it's a rental component. And if you work with E3 for your rental solutions, we even store your graphics at no additional cost. You also don't have to worry about long-term maintenance. Again, when we're on a trade show floor, things can get chaotic. So there is a lot of things that we have to take into account as far as maintenance. Overall, a rental solution is also going to provide a lower upfront cost. Some of the considerations when you're exploring either route for purchases, again, you're going to have to make sure that you have arrangements for storage and ongoing maintenance to make sure once you get to that next show, that experience is still top-notch. For our partners, we do have an exhibit management program here in-house where we get it ready before and after each event. We double check for parts and pieces, quality check for any damage. That way, before our partners get to that show, we can already either repair what needs to be repaired or fix what needs to be fixed. So another purchase consideration is it is a higher initial investment, but like I mentioned earlier, it oftentimes does result in cost savings. Depending on what type of experience that you're trying to create, a rental route might make more sense for your budget. You have less flexibility in changing the design in some instances. If you're working with the right partner, they will help you recreate that experience to a different footprint, to an entirely new experience, and they can take all of those aspects into account before we even design an initial solution. So you do have a little less flexibility, but again, work with the right partner and they're going to be able to help guide you to the right direction. Some rental considerations, you are limited to some customization. Now we can do some custom elements, but again, much more streamlined, a lot of straight lines, but you can still create a really great experience with a rental. Rentals can actually become much more higher in cost long term. If you continue to go to shows, you're using the same exact asset, After about 3 uses, you've already purchased it. So make sure that you're working with your partner to really understand the cost differences between what the purchase looks like and what the rental looks like. When we do work with our partners, we do take all of these into account. And at the end of the day, if you want to rent, we'll rent. If you want to purchase, we'll help you purchase. But we do like to provide a recommendation on what you should do. Last, you don't have exclusive rights to the actual design concept. So some of these solutions can be streamlined so that way we can take off the graphics and the branding and rebrand it with somebody else's brand. So you don't have exclusive rights when you are renting the solution. Pro tip, kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. If you're going to use the asset 1 to 2 times, go the rental route. If you're going to use the asset at least 3 times without making any changes, go the purchase route. And like I said, we work with our clients to really reinforce that. So if you ever have any questions or you're just uncertain, please feel free to reach out to us and we'd love to help strategize with you on which route makes the most sense. Okay, so budgeting. This is really one-on-one today because there are so many ways that you can calculate a budget for a trade show. But let's talk about what exactly the budget is. Overall, it's a financial plan and it serves for future estimates, costs, and helps you make sure that you are going to see that ROI. It also serves as a guide to managing your KPIs to make sure that your money is being spent in the right places. I don't know about your guys' CEO, but our CEO is a numbers guy. He loves to see all that information. And if you have a budget in play, it's going to be much easier for you to reinforce the reason for spending that budget on a new exhibit. So then how do we determine the budget? Like I mentioned, there are many, many ways to calculate a budget. So again, work with the right partner to help you develop that budget. Since there are so many different ways that it can be calculated, it's really important for your partner to understand your functional needs and your goals for the experience. From there, we can help you develop what that budget looks like. But let's do a quick couple of ways that it can be calculated. Okay, so the easiest way is to look at the average square foot. The average square foot, we take a couple of standard industry rates, but keep in mind, average does not equal the best. So if you're wanting the best, we might need to up these numbers just a little bit. But in general, if we're looking for a small island up to 600 square foot, it's going to be about $250 per square foot. Medium islands are going to be between 600 and 1,200 square foot, which is about $225 per square foot. And then larger islands over 1,200 square foot are going to be about $200 per square foot. So for example, say we have a 20 by 20 space, which would equate 400 square foot. We're going to take 400 by that multiplier at 250, and that's roughly a $100,000 budget. Now again, we can be higher or even lower than these numbers, but this is a really great way to at least gauge where we need to be at from a budget standpoint and gives you an initial starting point. Then again, work with your partner to determine which price point is exactly right for you. Okay, so calculating your budget and determining what that ROI is very important. But one thing that we are really seeing in the industry is a focus on return on experience versus specifically the ROI. A lot of trade shows are specifically, blank mind right here, perception. They are all perception. What you put out there is what people see. So it's really important to really take into account the experience that you're creating, what people see, what people feel, what they remember after leaving your booth. So throughout the last 20 years, E3 has really worked very hard to create a set process to make sure that we're able to provide our partners with the best solution possible, designed specifically around their functional needs and their goals. The first step in that process is consultation. We really want to dig into the specifics on what you need. We might ask way more questions than what you're expecting, but that's all so that we have a full picture of what that solution might look like for you. Once we have all the details, then we'll enter a more collaborative phase, and that collaboration is going to be both with my team internally as well as our partners. So from an internal standpoint, after we gather that information, we are going to meet with our key team members, like our project management team, our designers, our executive team, discussing all of those key components to make sure that we are exploring a solution that will best fit your needs. The collaboration is also with your point of contact and the client. So making sure that when we do develop that solution, it aligns with your goals, it's going to work properly for you. And sometimes that's kind of an ongoing circle to find the right solution. But my biggest recommendation, especially during that collaboration phase, keep your line of communication open, transparency, full feedback, and you will be able to get to the best solution possible. Once we have all of that all painted out, you know exactly what it looks like, we're going to enter a more execution type of phase through that process. We're going to, again, incorporate all key members of our team to get to the final staging and the finish line and then on to the show. So we incorporate, again, our project management team. We incorporate designers to make sure that the exhibit artwork is going to look perfectly once it's printed. And then we're going to stage it here for you, invite our partners to come in, look at it, make sure they like it. It also gives our team the opportunity to really make sure that the graphics fit properly, mount any key components, and even allow your team to come in, see it, test out A/B content. Say you have some products that you're not really sure exactly how you want to display them in the space, you can bring them in, put them on the exhibit, and get a plan ahead of time rather than having to wait till the actual show floor. Then one of the most important steps in our process is evaluation. We really want to make sure that the solutions we've incorporated worked well for you. And especially when we're doing a brand new exhibit, some of the components that both the client as well as maybe even our team thought of, maybe it didn't work out exactly as we imagined. So evaluation can be very critical to make sure that when we go to the next show, we can put some sort of implementation into that experience to make sure that it does work for you ongoing.
All right, and so with that, we would love the opportunity to give you guys a free consultation with us here at E3, and during this, you guys would get your own dedicated marketing consultant that would help you guys kind of develop customized strategies for your program that are really designed around your specific objectives and needs. And in that consultation, we would also review your unique brand identity and positioning. So we would then evaluate your program's performance, kind of what has worked, maybe what hasn't worked as well, and really see what your goals are. And then, of course, Kayla and I's favorite part is the tour. If you guys are able to make it in person, we would love that, show you a tour of our facility, explore new solutions, but we are happy to meet virtually as well. We have a great virtual tour as well on our website. And so with this, we are able to provide, a lot of kind of unique tips, tools, and kind of tricks to help you guys continue to track the key content like ROI.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, and I would definitely recommend taking advantage of this complimentary trade show consultation and review. Webinars are really great information, but they are more of a group help type of setting. So general practices, best practices, so on and so forth. A trade show exhibit is a representation of your brand, and 99.9% of companies' brands are unique. So we need to review your unique needs on an individual level, and then we can really help develop that solution for you and guide you into the right direction. Over the last 20 plus years, we've really gathered a lot of different great tips and tricks tools to help our clients, whether we are helping them develop a new solution or they just need help with tracking ROI. We have a lot of those resources that we would love to share with you. So do highly recommend taking advantage of the free consultation. If you are interested, please drop your name and email into the chat feature, and Jack and I will connect you with one of our marketing consultants to schedule your consultation. And that being said, we would like to open up the floor, or I guess the chat box, to any questions that you might have, whether that be something related to the specific content that we reviewed today, or if you just have any questions in general. We'd love to hear from you and help you out however we can. And one other item, if you want to follow us on Facebook, or social media in general, we're always sharing great content. So definitely recommend checking us out on social media.
One question, Kayla. On the square footage costs, are those E3 numbers or are those industry standard numbers?
Those are industry standards. Now, anyway, if you just do a quick Google search, you're going to get a wide range of numbers, but these would be the industry standard. Like I said, they can range higher, lower. The best recommendation is keep an open line of communication and use that average square foot as your starting point. And that can at least help your partner understand, is that too high, or is it right where we need to be? Is it too low? It's more of a starting point than the final budget type of number.
If we were to schedule a consultation, how much time should we allocate for something like that?
Yeah, great question. Personally, I like about an hour because I'm a talker, but really we can probably do it within 30 minutes if you only have a 30-minute type of time frame. It would be very beneficial to do the full hour. Then we can show you a little bit more about our process, because Jack and I, we can talk all day. Like I said, I'm a talker, and I can specifically talk about our process all day long. So rather than talking about it, we really like to show you, because you'd probably be tired of hearing me talk at the end of it, but the other aspect is it really truly comes to life when you get to see it. So I would recommend an hour, but we could accommodate 30 minutes.
What's a fun new trend? I don't get to go to shows often, looking for something new. What are your customers asking for lately?
Yeah, great question. Depending on the type of experience, if we're going to a bigger magnitude, we're seeing a lot of LED video wall or tiles implemented into solutions, whether that be a 10 by 20 or an island type of space, or maybe even a 10 by 10. The thing that I love about LED tiles is you're not refined to the content. So you can have a big illustration of your brand, or maybe it's just a really cool graphic image that kind of showcases who you are but doesn't have any text. We can also do them, they've come a long way over the last couple of years where we're able to implement them just naturally into exhibits. In the past, you would have to have a big closet to hold all of the text, and now they can just go into the system naturally. We can also do individual kind of areas to create a really cool experience and catch people's attention. Now, if we're looking for something a little bit more cost effective, my biggest recommendation is something with lighting, whether that be a backlit solution, some halo lighting where it's like on the table in between the top and the main counterpart, or even a halo lit kind of logo like what you're seeing here. Anything that has some lighting in it is going to automatically draw people's attention directly to your space. Specifically for an inline space, if you're thinking about side-by-side exhibitors, if you have some sort of really cool lit element in your space, people are going to be automatically drawn to that. And on the flip side, if your co-exhibitor has something really cool in their space and you do not, you could be very easily overlooked. some of the other elements, we're seeing a lot of floral or fox plants within the space to create kind of more of like a homey and inviting type of experience. And then I would say the other biggest trend is a modular solution, a solution that can fit not only your 10 by 20s or inline spaces, but can be developed to then be reconfigured and fit with your island solutions. That's going to maximize your budget and still create consistency within your program. I would love to schedule a time with you. Those industry trends actually can be dependent on the exhibit space size. So if neither of those are really what you're looking for, let us know, and we can certainly collaborate and strategize with you on some new and upcoming solutions. All right. Well, I believe that is all of the questions today. If you're hoping to hear something that you didn't today, or just, again, want more information or to collaborate, please reach out, drop your name in the chat, and we would love to have the opportunity to meet with you and discuss your needs. Thanks for joining us today, and I hope everybody has a great day.